From Hagee Ministries Television Studios, today on The Difference, we welcome the founder, president, and chief counselor of First Liberty, attorney Kelly Shackelford.
No matter what your situation, there is a right to a religious exemption. People think they can do things because they think people don't have power to fight back.
Hello and welcome to The Difference. Today, Kendal and I are visiting with Kelly Shackelford, the founder and leader of First Liberty Institute, the largest legal organization defending religious freedoms in America today. Kelly, thank you for being on The Difference with us today.
Love being here. It's great to be with you guys.
It's always good to have you, and thank you for the work that you're doing at First Liberty. Tell us about First Liberty and what really created the need for the organization.
Well, God really created First Liberty. It's kind of a crazy story. Back when I was in high school, I knew my gifts were in analytical thinking and speaking. And so I thought, well, I either need to be a pastor or a lawyer. And people said, isn't that like a God
They both
or
like
Satan?
to argue.
Yeah. It's like pastor, lawyer, God, Satan. I don't know, those lawyers. And I went to my youth minister and I said, what do you think? And he said, well, I'll say this. He said, there's a lot of wonderful Christian ministers, and if you're called to be that, that's a great calling. But we do have a lot of Christian ministers, but we sure could use some more Christian lawyers.
I like that.
And when I analyzed my DNA, I realized I would probably do better at dispensing justice rather than mercy, and so I'd probably make a better lawyer. And went to law school. Really should have been an average student with my intelligence compared to the other students. But I had a real heart for ministry, so I led the discipleship ministry at my college. Mm-hmm. Not really a smart thing to do because in law school you have to study like 24 hours a day, and you're an average student. But when the grades came back, I was making all the high grades. And it was just God's way to show me, keep your heart for ministry, but do law. And so I got out a clerk for a federal judge. You do that for 1 year. It's kind of a unique experience. And so you get all the offers from all the big law firms. And I sat in my little clerk's office and I thought, I just feel like I'd suffocate if I went and worked at a regular law firm. I feel like God's calling me to do something different. And I remember thinking to myself, what do you want to do? And I thought, well, I want to use my legal skills because you've shown me that I should do that. But I want to help pastors and churches and religious freedoms and our founding principles. And I'd even like to go to seminary part-time. Wow. And I laughed. There's no paying job to do that. 2 weeks later, 2 guys called me, big partners with big national law firms. Never met these guys. They said, will you go to lunch? I said, sure. They said, look, we started donating our time for religious freedom. We're getting so many calls that it's hurting our ability to make a living. So we were wondering, would you be willing to come on, do legal cases, help pastors, churches, religious freedoms, and our founding principles, and you can even go to seminary part-time if you want.
Answer to prayer.
And I was in my mid-20s, maybe a little immature in my faith, so I said, let me pray about it. Like that wasn't an answer to prayer. And the next day I went, well, I think that was an answer to prayer. And they said how much you need to live on. They pitched in out of their pocket. Wow. We started a nonprofit, and 32 years later, First Liberty is the largest legal organization in the country that all we do is religious freedom.
And in doing the work that you do, not only are you making a difference in the lives of individuals on a daily basis concerning the situations that they face, but you're setting precedent for the future. Yeah. And that, to me, is probably some of the most important work that First Liberty does, because the battles you fight today become the reference points for tomorrow. That judges and legal cases that are yet to even be waged are going to look back at and say, well, what decisions were made then? One of those important cases is one about Miss Gail. Now, Gail's a nurse, and she gave her life to the practice of medicine, but she recently faced some personal challenges that required her to quit nursing, and so she decided to spend her own time and her own resources and all of her own free will to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. She just chose to do it in a public park and found herself at a crisis of religious freedom. That's where First Liberty steps in. I want you guys to watch this video about Gail and see some of the important work that First Liberty is doing.
Nursing was it for me. It was my identity. I did everything. If I could help them get a job or an apartment. My husband says that I am a frustrated social worker. January 7th, 1984, I actually had been going to a Bible study on the book of John, and it opened my heart to the Word of God being the answer, the truth. It was the best day of my life. I actually was born with a genetic disorder, retinitis pigmentosa, and I still continued nursing until I couldn't anymore because of my vision loss. If somebody ever said to me, hey, you could have your eyesight, but you have to, get rid of Jesus, I'd say, no deal. Wherever I go, I try to hand this out to people. So it's 21 chapters of the gospel. I get around with my cane to cross the street, to go in the park. Going into a park to talk with people is a pleasure, first of all, but knowing that eternal life is real and people don't know that they're in danger, people have been saved in the park. I've had more of a reaction from the staff in the park that was not too nice, like they would interrupt me. There's plenty of people to talk to. I don't have to be going after anybody. I couldn't. It would be a tripping hazard for me. I was sitting on a bench with a man that I was conversing with. The executive director comes over and he says that he was going to call the police. And that's the start of the 2-year ban, even from the library, which that was a little bit of a surprise to me, that they would ban me from both the park and the library on passing out one of the 66 books of the Bible that you have in your library that people can check out. I guess my heart is broken, that I can't do what the Lord has told me to do. So if you want to say that I think about daily the lost souls. I think the Lord has positioned me right across from the park. It's a divine assignment that I absolutely need to fulfill. It's just a must.
Now, Kelly, you took on Gail's case and helped defend her right to go into a public park that her tax dollars were a part of sustaining and keeping, and then sharing her faith, which is a matter of freedom of speech and freedom of religion, which most people in America would say, of course, those are, constitutionally protected rights. How is it that she finds herself in a position where they're going to call the police? I mean, that's what you do for somebody who's peddling controlled substances. That's not what you do for somebody who's handing out tracts. Yeah,
I want people to think about that. I mean, here she is blind. She's in an apartment across the street from the park, and she thinks, this is it. This is what the Lord's called me to do.
This is her divine calling.
I'm supposed to walk across the street, find my way across, get into the park. So how did this happen? How did she learn that she was banned? A police officer showed up at her door. This is how it happened. It happens because people think they can do things because they think people don't have power to fight back. Wow. I mean, that's why First Liberty exists, because we've got teams that'll help Gail or anybody who they try to take away her First Amendment freedoms. And she won, and we won, and we get a message from her now every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month, because she's so excited that somebody else has just accepted the Lord. And the guy who turned her in is now even going to her church. So God will reward people if they'll just be faithful, and Gail's faithful, and people might think, what power do I have? We're a part of the body of Christ. we have whatever power the King wants to provide. So we just need to be faithful and let him do what he does. And I think there need to be a lot more Gails out there, and we would turn the country around.
And there's even like Gail, I can relate to her as a nurse. Right now, what's happening in our world, if you do not get the vaccine, they are saying we're going to fire you.
Yes.
And there's a lot of my nursing friends that are probably watching, and those that are in the hospitals that are like, what do? We can't lose our job.
Yeah.
Well, and it comes down to one word for me, it's intimidation.
Yes.
You know, the thing that they were trying to do with Gail is intimidate her into silence.
Yes.
And so, you know, this is why they used, you know, authority in a wrong way, but she was willing to stand up to what she knew to be right. And, you know, what Kendal's saying about nurses that are working in the country right now, Gail was a nurse, and I know there's a lot of people in not just the medical community, but several industries that are trying to figure out, where does my freedom stop? And where do I get to stand up and protect it? When we come back, we're going to talk more about that. You don't want to go away. We're having a very important discussion on the difference today with Kelly Shackelford from First Liberty Institute.
Coming up next.
And by the way, there's regulations, the orders right now that if you don't have the vaccine in the military, your family is prohibited from traveling. Not just you, your family.
In America, we gather with family and friends once a year to celebrate Thanksgiving, a special time to recognize all the blessings in our lives.
As you enjoy the warm welcome of home, friends, and family, remember to share God's love and the true meaning of gratitude this Thanksgiving season.
For your support, we will send you specially selected recipes from Diana Hagee's cookbook, Not by Bread Alone, together with a wooden display block and our Western wall ornament from Israel. For your gift of $200 or more, we'll include Diana's commemorative edition of the Not by Bread Alone cookbook and accompanying cheese board and dish towel.
From everyone here at Hagee Ministries, happy Thanksgiving. We pray that His Word continues to bless you and that the Lord nourishes your soul with His love.
Send your best gift today. Call the number on the screen or visit jhm.org/thankful.
A lasting legacy is all about the actions you take during your life. Your actions will affect how people remember you for generations to come. As a legacy partner, your monthly gift supports humanitarian efforts in Israel, the Sanctuary of Hope, and our global broadcast outreach. The Bible states that when you bless Israel, God blesses you. God can use us in amazing ways to enrich the lives of God's chosen people. Partner with us today. Call the number on the screen or go to jhm.org/partner.
Welcome back to The Difference. Our guest is Kelly Shackelford from the First Liberty Institute. Kelly, before we went to break, we were talking about the current tactics of intimidation that a lot of people in the United States are feeling right now, especially when it comes to the word mandate. Mandate sounds very strong, it's authoritative. What is actually causing it, and what can we do about it?
Well, there are a lot of people that are trying to abuse their power, and in many cases abusing their power. I think everybody has seen these different attacks, and it's in so many different areas, like nurses, right? But it's also military, government employees, maybe your private employer.
Yeah.
It's coming from different angles. Schools, right? And so one of the things we did at First Liberty is we created a pamphlet or a resource where people can look at this, and what we call it is Religious Liberty Protection Kit for the Vaccine Mandates, to know what your rights are. If you're a student, if you're in the military, if you have a government employer, if you have a private employer. And here's the good news. No matter what your situation, pretty much almost everywhere in the United States, there is a right to a religious exemption or religious accommodation, usually medical as well. Because some people, if they take a vaccine, it can have horrible medical consequences because of their own situation. But with religious liberty, we so respect that in this country that we do everything we can to accommodate people who have different religious beliefs. And so let's say you have a private employer. There are laws. It goes back to it's called the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You can't discriminate on the basis of race, sex, religion. Everybody kind of knows this law. But what they don't know is there's an extra provision that says not only do you not discriminate on the basis of religion, but you are required as an employer to affirmatively accommodate the religious beliefs of your employees if you can do so. So when somebody says, oh, I can't do that, I know it doesn't violate your faith, but it violates my faith to do that, there's federal law that protects those people. Yeah. And if it's violated, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, can even bring a lawsuit on their behalf. And if they don't, you still have a right to bring your own lawsuit if you want. So a lot of people have religious objections because of the fetal cells, the abortions that were used to either test or make some of these vaccines. But in addition, there are other people that's not their objection. It's for them, it's their body as a temple, and God has told them not to put certain things into their body. It doesn't matter what it is, to be honest.
Correct.
It's a matter of if it's your belief and it's sincere, then it's protected. I can't tell you how many people have gone, they've gotten that resource, they've gone, 90% of them is granted. Okay? They've gotten the exemption. But the other 10%, what I find is they're told no. Or they're told,
they just don't turn it in?
And they don't turn it in.
Yeah.
And what I've found is, I even had a doctor, I'm thinking of a particular doctor, he turned in his request. He 3 different hospitals where he worked. One of them granted, the other 2 didn't. He pushed back on the other 2. Now he's granted it all 3.
Correct.
It was just a matter of intimidating people.
Okay. Well, and to your point about intimidation, the word mandate sounds very official, but I think it's important for people to understand just because an elected official says it doesn't make it law.
No.
If your governor or the mayor or the president stands up and says, I'm going to, the beauty of America is with the separation of powers, there's a process by which something becomes law, and it doesn't happen at a press conference.
No. So example of that, right? Everybody saw that the president gave this big press conference saying that he's going to come up with this new regulation from OSHA that's going to tell every employer that has 100 or more people that they have to force everybody to get the mandate. Well, most people think that it's happened. It hasn't happened.
They think it's done as soon as the news goes off.
None of that's done. As soon as those regulations come out, assuming they do, I think there's going to be 1,000 lawsuits filed. OSHA applies to churches.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, immediately my phone rang off the hook because with our school and all the different things that we have here, they say, well, what's that going to do to us?
Yeah. And so what's going to happen is we've got lawsuits already prepared, ready to be filed 5 minutes after if they release these, because it's massively unconstitutional.
Correct.
Number one, health and safety is controlled by the states, not the federal government. Okay. OSHA has no authority to do this. There's so many problems with it. Even if the federal government had the authority, it would be done through the legislature, not from some edict from, an executive, right? And then take the OSHA regulations themselves. They would do this because they say there's an emergency. Well, let me see. Okay, there's an emergency, but people who have 100 employees and less, it doesn't apply to them. It doesn't sound like much of an emergency.
If you've got 99 employees, apparently it's not a problem.
But here's the good news I want people to understand. Even if all that unconstitutionality was ignored, and let's say the courts did everything wrong and they said, yes, this OSHA mandate applies, every employer has to require, religious exemptions are still federal law.
Correct.
Everybody still has a right to religious exemptions. And let's say you're an employer who doesn't, particularly want to, and again, they're ignoring all the unconstitutionality here. All you have to do as an employer is say, I want people to understand that under the law, religious exemptions and medical exemptions are allowed as a matter of right, because I want to respect my employees and I want you to know your rights. And I want you to know that if you ask for one, I will respect that. We've got a lawsuit we're in the process of filing right now on behalf of 36 Navy SEALs.
Because you were talking about military personnel that are under duress.
It's just incredible. These are young guys. If you look at the percentages of what would happen to them in their shape, number one, there's almost zero danger from COVID for them.
Correct.
But number two, a lot of them are already immune. And the idea that you're going to throw them out of the service because they have a religious objection and you refuse to even listen, and again, it's required by law.
Correct.
I mean, it's just incredible. We're going to throw our best people out of the military?
Navy SEALs are special forces operators.
Yes.
They have selflessly sacrificed just to qualify to be called Navy SEAls.
Yes.
And then the things that they're sent around the world to do are often, life and death situations. And because of a vaccination that they don't need, we're going to eliminate them from service.
And dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.
We're going to punish them, which is basically like a felony.
Correct. Dishonorable discharge, if you're here in San Antonio, military city, so many people understand what a detriment that is to your record.
Yes.
But, that's for individuals who violate the law.
Yes.
Not for individuals who choose not to get an injection.
I mean, the reason these people are fighting for us is so that we have freedom. And the idea that we wouldn't give them freedom, that they don't have freedom of conscience, this is really, I think this angers most Americans.
It should.
These are people that are willing to give their lives.
Yeah.
And the idea that we're treating them this way, and by the way, there's regulations, the orders right now, that if you don't have the vaccine in the military, your family is prohibited from traveling. Not just you, your family. So think of that, okay? Let's say your wife's father dies.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to travel to go to his funeral. Now, I had a Marine that just told me,
just being a military wife.
You try to stop my wife from going.
Good luck.
But this is the kind of discrimination and abusiveness.
I wouldn't want to tell you that.
This is the kind of thing that's happening. It never should happen in our. And I'll tell people, look, if you need the resource, go to our website and get it. But we can't represent, we're getting 5,000 requests,
I'm
right?
signing religious exemptions based off of First Liberty. I told our congregation, download the form. I'm signing 25, 30 of them a week.
Yeah. And so we can't represent everybody. So I would just encourage people, get on our list where you get the emails every week.
Yes.
Because then you'll at least see when the precedents start coming down. Because we're trying to pick the best cases, file those, and create precedents that help all these people that need help, that we can't represent that many people. So stay in touch, because you might not be told about these victories by the media.
They're not going to get celebrated on the liberal news.
No.
But, with regard to that, your win-loss record as First Liberty is astounding. It's over, I believe, 90%?
Over 90% every year for the last 22 years.
Well, that's the way God works. And truth is not a document. Truth is an individual. His name is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And everywhere you see truth, you see his fingerprints, which is how our country was founded. It's what the laws were built around, and it's what your organization is so valiantly defending. When we come back, we're going to talk about how you can play a role in defending this truth and this freedom for future generations. Don't go away. You're watching The Difference.
And when we come back,
most Christians think religious freedom is important because I want the ability to live out my faith. It's much bigger than that, okay? And we're starting to see this as Marxism starts to creep into our country and attack. The first thing it has to do is remove the church.
The life of a child is precious in God's eyes, and the gift of life is something you can become a part of today. We at Hagee Ministries are offering you the opportunity to change the life of a child and mother by becoming a legacy partner. As a legacy partner, your monthly gift supports the Sanctuary of Hope, that is a one-of-a-kind safe haven that provides a home to single expectant mothers and offers resources that will enable them to find success in their communities. The Sanctuary of Hope exists to provide a loving, safe environment where both baby and mother can receive the education, care, and hope they so desperately need. When you partner with us, our legacy becomes your legacy, and together we are impacting lives and transforming nations for Jesus Christ. There has never been a better time to share the love of Christ with a mother and a child than right now. Become a legacy partner today. Call the number on the screen or go to jhm.org/partner.
Here at Hagee Ministries, we're excited to announce our digital web platforms that provide you with live streaming services, special messages, and series, all through our video on-demand applications. Our Hagee Ministries channel app is now available on Apple TV, Amazon, and Roku streaming platforms. You can also watch our services live on your favorite social media channels, including YouTube, Facebook, or online at jhm.org/watch.
that there's a group of people who are here to support people's religious freedoms.
To make sure that our freedoms, our children's religious freedoms, are going to be standing for something was an encouragement. I don't feel so discouraged about the direction our country's taking.
I understand what this means. Religious freedom is the first freedom, and the founders called it the first freedom because they understand if you lose this freedom, you'll lose all your freedoms. And this is something that Christians don't even understand. Most Christians think religious freedom is important because I want the ability to live out my faith. It's much bigger than that, okay? And we're starting to see this as Marxism starts to creep into our country and attack. The first thing it has to do is remove the church. These are competing systems. And so we're starting to see this. There's a great book I would encourage you if you get a chance to read it. It's only 214 pages. It's called Live Not by Lies. And Rod Dreher, the author of the book, goes and interviews people from former communist countries. And they talk about what happened and how terrified they are at what they're seeing right now in the United States as these new attempts, as Marxism begins seeping into the United States. And the question is, what do you do about it? The answer is live not by lies. Alexander Solzhenitsyn's last essay before he was banned from the Soviet Union was Live Not by Lies, which said these totalitarian regimes all exist by everybody going along with the lies. And if enough people, not a majority, just enough people will stand up and speak the truth, even though it costs them, the totalitarianism collapses. And it tells the story of each country of how people did this. I remember one of them, an 80-year-old woman now who at the time then was 16 and was told if she spoke the truth, she would be put to death. She stood for the truth. She's 81 now, still alive, and her country is free. But this is this battle we're in. It's a really unusual time. There is a cost for standing and speaking the truth. There are all these lies that we all know are lies. Think of all the things going on. I mean, are there men and women? You could go through the list. Will anybody say it? Will anybody stand for what's true? That's the battle. But religious freedom and the church must be removed before this new government comes in. The best way I can describe this is the one thing that a totalitarian regime can never allow is citizens who hold an allegiance to one higher than the government. Because whenever that happens, there are these one people, they won't bow their knee to the government, and they cannot allow that. A totalitarian regime can never allow it. So if that is the first flashpoint, and if you lose there, you'll lose all your freedoms.
Thank you for watching today's program. And now here's a glimpse of our next episode.
These pastors who think, I don't want to get involved in that, that's like political. It's not political, it's about freedom.
Correct.
It's about you standing as the church. And so we've got to wake up, and people have to wake up or they're not going to have their freedoms.
I want to thank you for joining Kendal and I for The Difference today. I want to thank Kelly Shackelford for the important work that he's doing at First Liberty Institute. And if you want to stay informed about matters that are important to you as an American who wants to defend your freedoms, your religious liberty, then I encourage you to go to First Liberty on the web and find out more about how not only can you stay informed, but participate in defending truth for the next generation. You can make a difference today for the world tomorrow. God bless you, and thank you for being a part of our program.